Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries. Tonight, we plunge beneath the waves to seek the most enduring and controversial legend in human history, the Lost City of Atlantis. The sheer scale of this myth is staggering, captivating imaginations, driving scientific expeditions, and haunting historians for over 2 millennia. The tale is powerful because it originates not in ancient folklore or fragmented oral traditions, but in the serious, documented writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, who, around 360 BC, described Atlantis as a technologically advanced, incredibly powerful naval empire that existed approximately 9,000 years before his time. Plato detailed its immense wealth, its powerful armies, and its unique, concentric ring structure of the capital city. According to Plato, Atlantis grew arrogant and greedy, leading the gods, specifically Poseidon, to sink the entire island continent into the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune. This story, intended by Plato as a moral fable about hubris, has launched centuries of obsessive, scientific and speculative searches, making Atlantis the ultimate archaeological white whale. To understand the credibility of the myth, we must meticulously trace it back to Plato's source, the Athenian lawgiver Solon. Plato claimed the story was relayed through his ancestor Solon, who traveled to Egypt around 600 BC. There, in the ancient city of Sais, he spoke with Egyptian priests. These priests, masters of recorded history, told Solon that the Athenian state had existed 9,000 years ago and had fought a great war against the powerful island empire of Atlantis. This conflict, they claimed, was the only surviving memory of Atlantis, as the Greeks had lost their own records to geological upheavals. The Egyptian priests were remarkably specific. They described the Atlantean Empire as larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, suggesting a location deep in the Atlantic. The distance in time, 9,000 years, is the single most contested figure in the entire body of evidence. Many modern historians suggest this immense figure resulted from a simple translation error by Solon or his interpreters. They hypothesize that the Greek words for 1,000 and 100 may have been confused when translating from the Egyptian hieroglyphs. If the timescale is reduced from 9,000 to 900 years, the story suddenly aligns with known Bronze Age catastrophes in the Mediterranean. Yet Plato was steadfast, dedicating the bulk of his dialogues to Timaeus and Critias to asserting the larger, more ancient figure, challenging us to accept a pre-classical civilization far older than acknowledged history. The fidelity of the text to a single ancient source is what grants the myth its enduring philosophical power. Plato's description of the Atlantean capital is not fantasy. It is a detailed blueprint of a utopian, highly engineered, and militarized society. The island itself was magnificent, protected by mountains and fed by vast plains. The core of the capital city was built on a small central hill, surrounded by alternating rings of land and sea, 2 rings of land, 3 rings of water, forming a perfect bullseye pattern. These rings, all connected by vast navigable canals and bridges, served both as a defensive measure and a marvel of infrastructure. The engineering was magnificent. Bridges spanned the sea rings, allowing vessels access to the central harbor, and massive breakwaters protected the entrance from the violent Atlantic. The construction materials themselves speak of extraordinary wealth. They utilized white, black, and red stone for the buildings. The buildings were then adorned with the mythical metal Orichalcum, described as glowing red and more valuable than gold, used in their temples, sacred structures, and internal lining, giving the entire city a shimmering, unique light. This metal, still unidentified by modern science, hints at an advanced metallurgical knowledge lost to time. The societal structure was equally rigid. The island was divided among 10 kings, descendants of Poseidon himself. Their laws were carved into an Orichalcum pillar located within the central temple of Poseidon. Every 5 or 6 years, the kings would gather in the temple, swear an oath, and sacrifice a bull on the pillar, drinking the mixed blood and wine. This elaborate ritual emphasized their divine lineage and their strict adherence to the laws laid down by Poseidon. They were forbidden to wage war on each other and were required to lend mutual aid. The military might was staggering, designed for total imperial dominance. The Atlantean Navy could field over 1,200 ships, an overwhelming force for the ancient world, capable of attempting the subjugation of the entire Mediterranean world before being stopped by the ancient Athenians. This immense power and organized wealth demonstrate a civilization that had transcended mere survival to achieve global geopolitical dominance. Despite the detailed nature of Plato's text, modern geology presents a powerful scientific rebuttal to the idea of a lost Atlantic continent. The central argument lies in plate tectonics and isostasy. The Atlantic Ocean floor is characterized by the mid-Atlantic ridge, where tectonic plates are pulling apart, not colliding or submerging. Geologists assert that a continent-sized landmass simply cannot disappear overnight. Continental crust is lighter and less dense than oceanic crust. For a continent to sink into the deep trenches without leaving massive, easily detectable scars on the Earth's crust is scientifically impossible within the last 100,000 years, let alone 11,500 years ago. Furthermore, the concept of isostasy dictates that continental crust floats on the denser mantle. Even if massive earthquakes were to break a continent apart, the lighter pieces would not sink but would rebound, leaving evidence above the surface. Therefore, most mainstream scientists conclude that if Atlantis existed as described by Plato, a continent beyond Gibraltar, it must be a geological impossibility, strengthening the argument that Plato used the Minoan destruction story and merely magnified its geography and time scale for philosophical impact. The fact that the search requires ignoring known geological laws is the central enduring conflict of the Atlantis mystery. The most dramatic and terrifying element of the myth is the utter suddenness of the destruction. The sinking was not a gradual event. Plato writes that the end came in a single day and night of misfortune. This implies a geological event of world-altering magnitude. Experts who accept the myth's premise suggest a combination of events. A massive, sustained series of earthquakes tore the island continent apart, destabilizing its volcanic foundation. This tectonic failure would have triggered gigantic tsunamis and floods that washed over the sinking landmass simultaneously. The force would have been so immediate and overwhelming that the Atlanteans had no time to mount an organized evacuation. The entire event, from the first tremor to the final disappearance beneath the waves, took less than 24 hours. The violence was so complete that when the island finally vanished, Plato states that the resulting debris, volcanic ash, and mud rendered the seas impassable for ships for centuries afterward. The deep-sea floor would have been obscured by a massive shoal of volcanic and sedimentary material, cementing the secret of Atlantis in a shroud of impenetrable mud. The search requires finding evidence not of erosion, but of a massive, geologically recent land collapse that was both instantaneous and globally disruptive. The sheer difficulty in finding a sunken continent has driven many researchers to extreme and controversial geographical theories. One of the most elaborate and disputed theories popularized by Charles Hapgood centers on the idea of crustal displacement. This theory suggests that the entire Earth's lithosphere, crust, shifted relative to the core approximately 12,000 years ago. If the crust suddenly shifted, land masses currently located under the Antarctic ice sheet could have been in a temperate zone 12,000 years ago, fitting Plato's timeline. The Antarctica hypothesis claims that Antarctica itself was Atlantis, existing before the sudden crustal shift froze it solid. Proponents point to controversial medieval maps, such as the Piri Reis map, which allegedly depict the Antarctic coast without ice, suggesting ancient knowledge of the continent before it was covered. This theory is highly contested by mainstream science, which confirms that the Antarctic ice sheet has existed for millions of years, yet it offers a compelling explanation for the total disappearance of a vast, advanced culture at precisely the right time period. Other researchers have focused their attention on areas that match the beyond the Pillars of Hercules description, but offer tangible, if debated, submerged evidence. The Andalusia-Doñana Park hypothesis in Spain suggests Atlantis was located in a marshy region near the modern Strait of Gibraltar. Proponents such as Professor Richard Freund claim satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar show concentric rings buried under the vast marshlands of the Doñana National Park. This site fits the geographic region perfectly and suggests the city was destroyed not by sinking, but by massive tsunami wash from the Atlantic, which buried the settlement under thick layers of mud. The theory gains credence from the finding of unusual Bronze Age artifacts in the area. Further west, the Cuba underwater city theory stems from sonar anomalies discovered in the deep water off the coast of Cuba. Researchers Paulina Zalitsky and Paul Weinsweig claim sonar and ROV data revealed massive, organized stone structures resembling pyramids, roads, and buildings at a depth of over 2,000 feet. The structures appear to show symmetry and organization too precise to be natural. While critics dismiss the findings as rock formations or imaging artifacts, the site perfectly places a supposed ancient city in the deep Atlantic, tantalizingly close to the Americas. Ultimately, despite thousands of diving expeditions, billions of dollars spent on satellite mapping, and the application of every modern forensic and geological tool available, the conclusive physical evidence of a massive, technologically advanced society sinking beneath the waves has never been found. The search for Atlantis continues to drive advancements in deep-sea technology, sonar mapping, and underwater archaeology. Every few years, a new anomaly is detected, fueling fresh hope, but none have definitively uncovered the gleaming red Orichalcum or the perfect bullseye of Plato's city. Whether the story is a simple philosophical warning against imperial hubris, a massive distortion of the Minoan Thera volcanic catastrophe, or if the myth truly contains the literal fading memory of a great advanced civilization lost beneath the waves, Atlantis remains the ultimate unconquerable puzzle. It challenges us to confront the profound question, what else lies buried, lost to the sea, that we simply don't have the technology or the imagination to find? The silence of the deep Atlantic guards history's greatest secret,